Hello and welcome to another exciting Blender tutorial. We're going to take this image and we're going to turn it into this image so you can repeat over and over again in your space scenes. Let's jump into it. Now the first thing I'm going to do with my light is actually I'm going to change it from a point light to a sun lamp. I want it to be sort of a big light source that's far off, that's just directional. That's what sun lamps do. There's no position value to a sun lamp. It's just directional. It's just which way is it facing. I'm also going to turn the strength down to maybe 10, and I'm going to rotate it just a little bit like this in my view, and then I'll rotate on the Z a little bit and kind of bring it around. Right, let's create some atmosphere to this scene. So I'm going to go over here to my world shader. In the shader editor, I'm gonna switch over from the object tab to the world tab. Let me show you what I've got going on already just for this beginning base image. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is make space. Very simple. All we're gonna go is Shift A, click on the search button and type in noise. Grab the noise texture. We're gonna drop it here. And we're gonna grab a color ramp, drop it here. And we're gonna take the factor and plug it into the factor, the color, plug it into the color. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the scale up to like 200 or something. And they'll take the black pip and we'll just drag it all the way up until we get outer space. Easy. And I'm going to create a volume scatter node. Now to really get this looking nice, you're going to make sure over in your render tab that you have Eevee picked as your render engine. And you want to turn on ambient occlusion, bloom, and screen space reflections. Now we're going to take our volume scatter node and we're going to take the density. We're going to turn it right down to 0.01 and we're going to plug it into the volume. Now we're going to take the anisotropy and we're going to drag it down all the way to, let's go 0.99. Now what that's going to do is it's going to create a bit of haze around our light sources. So now I can take my key light, this sun lamp, and it's creating some nice haze in my space environment. So give it a bit more density. Then I'm going to take the volume scatter node and change the color to a little bit of a blue color, just to give it that dark, spacey kind of feel. All right, next I'm gonna add a distant sun to really kind of beef up the contrast of the image. So I'm gonna go Shift A in my 3D viewport, go to Mesh Sphere, UV Sphere. I'm gonna scale it down, drag it up here, and I'm gonna click New to create a new shader. And I'm just gonna switch it from the surface from being principled BSDF, and I'm gonna pick the emission shader. And I'm just gonna drag my strength right up, and I'll give it a bit of an orangish red color. And I'll grab it like this and I'll just push it right back on the Y and then turn it right up so we get a little nice bloom. Again, you won't get that nice bloom effect unless you have bloom turned on in your render settings. And I'm just gonna tuck this off somewhere. Maybe make it a dual sun binary system, why not? Okay, so next I'm gonna add some atmosphere to my planet. So it feels like it's not super solid. It's got some, I'm gonna click on the sphere itself and I'm gonna come over here to my object shader again. And I'm just gonna turn up subsurface scattering. And I'll pick a cool color for the subsurface. I might go for maybe, or another type of blue. And now I wanna make sure that the outer edge of my planet isn't too sharp because it doesn't quite feel right if it's too sharp. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna add a bit of alpha channel transparency into the edge. We're gonna grab a special node called the layer weight node. And it gives us two really good options, Fresnel and facing. And this basically tells us which faces of our object are facing the camera and which are looking away. So the further something looks away from the camera, the more the directions the faces of the object look away from camera, the more it's going to shade them either white or black. So we can get really cool sort of fall off effects towards the edges of something based on where the camera's pointing using this kind of a node. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab a color ramp and just so we can see the effect, I'm gonna plug it all into the emission. So I'll take the Fresnel and I'll plug this one into the emission. This will make our object glow. And you can see as I drag the black and white values, we get white as the sphere starts to point away from the camera, whereas we have black when we're more facing towards the camera. So I want to kind of get this adjusted so that, most of it's black. We just get this white outer edge. I might set this from linear to ease. It'll soften up the fall off even more. I want to actually invert this. So I'm going to go invert and drop this here. I could also just flip these, but I want to make sure I keep that position because I like it. And I'm going to plug this now into the alpha. Now, to get this to work in Eevee, I need to do one other step. We need to open up the side panel here, go to options, and where we have blend mode and shadow mode here, I just need to change this to alpha, either hashed or blend. I'm just going to go alpha blend to get a really nice smooth fall off. I'm going to turn off show back face. And let's see, for shadow mode, I'll just leave it set to none because I'm not really casting shadows with this planet. But you can see it's softened up the edge quite nicely. Now, what I could also do is just play with these a little bit, even more of a fall off there. Next thing I'm going to do is separate this edge of the planet, the dark side of the planet, from the space background so that it has a bit of a pop to it. So it actually kind of stands out a little bit from the black on black. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my point light, which is actually a sun lamp. Remember, we recreated that into a sun lamp. I'm going to shift E to duplicate it. And I'm going to rotate on the Z and rotate it on the X and bring it down so it's behind the planet. And I'm going to set the strength just down to 1. And I'm just going to move it around until I get a nice kind of eclipse effect. All right, now next I'm going to give a sense of scale. So I'm going to create a little moon that just sits next to this planet. So I'll take the planet, I'll shift D, scale it down, and just get another little sphere. And I'll just bring it forward so I get a nice shadow. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna do is add some texture to the surface of my planet so it feels a little bit more real. I'm gonna come over here and my shader and I'm gonna search for it with Shift A and type in noise. I'll grab the noise texture. Then I'm gonna grab a color ramp and I will pick this color, which we're already using for the first pip. So I'll pick the first pip, I'll click the color, grab the color picker and I'll select that. And then I'll do the same for this one. I'll pick the same color, but then I'll go into this one and I'll drop it down so that it's quite dark. Then I'll take the factor and I'll plug it in here to the factor input. Then I'll take the color output and plug it into the base color. And now what I'll do is I'll take my scale down and maybe turn up my distortion, brighten up the main color a little bit, take some of the saturation out so it shows up a little bit better. I'm gonna keep my scale really small, so like 0.6, my detail just kind of normal, and the roughness, I've turned up the roughness and I've got the distortion up to 10. The key with the small scale means that these sweeping shapes, they won't look too much like a noise pattern. If I turn this up, it's just gonna look like a bit of a noise pattern. But if you keep it really low, we just end up with the large kind of bands, which really help create a bit of texture. I'm just gonna darken up my subsurface, so make it a little bit more of a richer color. All right, now next thing I want to do is take where I've got this solid black color that's right sort of the dominating center part of my image with this planet. I want to lift it up just a little bit so you can pick out some of the detail without losing that feeling of high contrast that you want to have in space. So I'm going to grab my original point light, the one that's creating this source for us, and I'm going to Shift D to duplicate it. And I'm going to turn the strength all the way down to 1, and I'm going to turn my angle up. And what angle does is it allows the light to wrap more around the objects in the scene. So I'll just wrap it a little bit and I'll rotate on the Z a little bit and kind of bring it around so it starts to fill in this area here. And I'll just play with that angle and the strength as well. Don't want it to be too bright. I want to keep that sharp shadow. In fact, I might take our main point light and turn it up to 20 just to really kind of help that pop, and then take this one. And now I can bring it up a little bit more. And so that's how you can take a simple image like this and turn it into something that looks like this. I hope you learned a lot and really enjoyed today's tutorial. If you did, hit that like button and leave me a comment down below. Let me know what kind of tutorials you'd like to see in the future. Special thanks to all the patron supporters and everybody over on YouTube that has joined there, as well as everybody over on the Blender Market who supports this channel by buying the products. Thanks for making this tutorial possible. Catch you in the next one. Until then, have a fantastic week. See ya.